Good morning and welcome back to Spidz YouTube. Today we're in a little bit of a different environment where I'm currently staying. There are people there and I don't want to disrupt them while recording Spidz YouTube. So today I'm at uni and I've been here a few times when recording stuff. And I can show you around maybe a little. There's like these cool fucking microphones and there's this thing that's pretty cool. And you know, the room looks kind of nice. It's much better than the room that I normally record in. Everything's gone wrong already. I'm tangled in a sea of like wires and difficulty, and like the lighting in here does not help the dark circles under my eyes. But this set that we play against Renrag is one of the more interesting sets that I've done in Legends of Runeterra for quite a little while. I'm playing some decks that I've not really played too much in, like Volibear SI, fighting an enemy gamer that I shouldn't be too favored into, but there are very interesting decisions and thoughts to be made. When playing this set, I felt as if I was playing one of the better sets that I've played in Legends of Runeterra for a little while. Now, I don't play perfectly, and there's actually a lot of misplays that I think are very interesting to analyze. But I hope that when we go through these games, you can see exactly why I find these games so fascinating. Renrag plays out of his mind. He's really good at what he's doing, and that's it. Let's step it back a bit and just go through this sequentially. When building our lineup for this week in Aegis, we wanted to, because it's the Iron Man format, have 3 people on 3 different lineups. What this meant is that if you have 2 people in if you have 2 people in the same lineup, that means they can easily be like double targeted down. You obviously have to start with that person and then you send in the other person if they lose so they can beat this deck that clearly beats this lineup that you started with. And it just becomes this whole mess if you have 2 people with the same lineup. Sometimes it can work if your reading is really quite good enough, but typically it's not that good. So we had 3 lineups. We had Prism Sword on this sort of massive control shell. He's sort of playing comfort. You've got me that was trying to beat the Scout's formidable duo. If someone brought that as a duo lineup, I'd be able to beat that lineup. Now, unfortunately, none of them ended up bringing that, which meant that my lineup was sort of dead to everything else. My lineup was actually not beating a single thing that Koako, Renrag, or Aikado brought. I think it doesn't have no chance. It doesn't have no chance against Renrag. But it's not great. And then Guy was trying to beat the sort of like super control high things like the Jace deck and like Seraphine set. That was just trying to be like an anti, late game power deck, right? Because you do your mid-range power stuff early. We first send in Guy, even though I think we may have been supposed to first send in Prism. And they first send in Koako. Guy beats Koako. They send in Renrag, who easily beats Guy. Lineup construction-wise as well, which is what happens in the game. Renrag ends up fighting me, and that's the set that we're going to see. Some spoilers, we do lose this set, and then Prism goes in, Prism beats Renrag, and then loses to Aikado, and we lose the best of 5. If you go to playoffs bracket, we're playing for 3rd against Donut's team, Maokai Saplings. And that should be somewhat fun. I'm not too invested because it's like, it's just playing for 3rd. It's not the most interesting thing in the world, but this set against Renrag, I'm very excited for. Let's quickly go over the decks. Let's start back to front. These are Renrag's decks. This is his Shen J4. Relatively normal, although instead of Deny, there are 2 All-Seeing Oracles, and there's a Sign-In, and then 1 of every boat, while I'm on 2 Protector, 1 Jarvan from memory. Some of the spells are a little bit different. They're on like 3 Spirit's Refuge and 2 Prismatic Barrier, which is a little bit different from how our ratios look. And we're also on like my version's on River Shaper. Actually, I can just show you my version. Isn't that crazy? I'm on River Shaper. He's not. I'm on Aegis. He's on Screeching Dragon. But at the end of the day, it's Shen J4, right? It's got Shen, Kingu Shoot, and a couple of barriers and some Jarvan-y stuff, and that's all you really need. This is their Jax on. This is what I end up banning, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. And this is Kennen Jinx, which is going to be a large thing that we talk about. This Kennen Jinx deck is very, very interesting. It's different from like kind of older Kennen Jinx decks because they typically run slightly more of the Mecha Yordle package. This is just more of a burn nonsense, but I think it's really important to analyze just how much draw is in this deck. There's 3 Zornite Urchin, 3 Augmented Clockling, 2 Sumptreasure, 2 Eye of the Storm, and 1 Rummage. And these draw cards are really sort of setting up this discard deck to be a lot more able to play between the turns of about 5 through 9, installing the game with like tons of units that play a unit and draw a card, and set up for drawing that burn more consistently, right? Kennen Jinx of old would sometimes be able to afford doing that, but in general, it necessitated getting a high amount of power on turns 1 through 5, and if it didn't get that, it would sort of be dead in the water, and you'd be much more reliant on Jinx constantly not being killed, right? While this version, you do want Jinx to stay alive, but Jinx can just be used as a 3 to 6 mana 3 to 6 damage, 2 rockets or 1 rocket. And instead you're playing for a lot of these weird draw cards, trying to find your fodder for finding your high tempo turns with flame jumpers and Eye of the Storms and blowbacks. Which is very interesting. And I think it's important to realize this about Renrag's deck, because it's something that I don't identify enough during the games. And it is sort of why I lose, is that I just don't identify this sufficiently enough. This is my Shen J4. It's just Shen J4. They ban High Menorah, so unfortunately I don't get to play it. This is just a copy of Jan Sports' list. I quite like it. It's good fun. I really like these cards. They're lots of fun to play with, but this ends up getting banned. And then finally we have Volibear SI, which is a Riot Vrist deck that I have changed exactly 1 Vengeance for 1 Fading Icon in. Because I really wanted early units, and I felt like Fading Icon is just 2 mana unit version of Harsh Winds, and Harsh Winds felt pretty important with how this deck wanted to play out. This deck tries to play for a sort of weird late game with Volibear, Necrotic, and Shihu Wonders, and trying to ramp into it with a Valhyr, Invocation of Thunder, and Winter's Touch. It's running 3 Eradication because, again, this was trying to beat Scouts and trying to beat Volibear, and so Eradication was like the whole point of the deck in a sense, and it just tries to do that. This deck is also a deck that we should be focusing on a lot, because this deck gets played twice and this deck gets played twice, which is why I want to highlight them particularly. Enough dilly-dallying. I want to show you the games. The games are very interesting. Let's quickly... Hopefully this works. You've worked, right? Hell yeah. Okay. I'm going to be showing you the games as Aegis broadcasted them. I did have my own recordings, but I wasn't talking through them. So unless you want to hear just like a remix of the Plants vs. Zombies 2 soundtrack, which sometimes is actually really well timed with what's happening on the screen, then we're just going to watch this. And it's also interesting because you get to see the enemy gamer's hand, which is sort of relevant, especially for some of the Kennen Jinx games. So let's go through them. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff for us to talk about, and I think there's a lot. I'm really fascinated to go through these because they're very, very, very interesting sets. So let's start.
We want to see some content. Yeah, I'm excited to see Volibear SI.
Passion Card Gamer sped up is rather humorous. Okay, we're not going to watch through everything. I am going to be a little bit more expedient when going through this game, like I did with the last video. I think that's a bit better of a format. So I'm playing Volibear SI, and we are playing against Shen J4. This is the first matchup. And Volibear SI versus Shen J4 is a matchup I have not done. And one thing I do want to highlight is the value of scrimming. Aegis Ascended did not scrim a single time for this tournament, and I think it's definitely why we lost. I think if I had scrimmed any one of the matchups that I lost, I think I would have converted them from losses into wins. Now, I don't think like a scrimming is a be-all end-all solution to be able to win or lose a matchup, but I think that for me particularly, knowing what intrinsic value my cards have and what they're doing in a matchup is such an incredible thing to have access to, and it's something that I need to get via practice. I cannot just be told it via words. I need the actual experience of having this occur, and not scrimming at all meant that I never had that matchup. So like, for example, in this hand, you might have a theory on what to keep. You might say, keep ramp. Your aim is to get to the late game and play She Who Wanders before they have a chance to have a lot of stuff that's above 4 strength. You might say, don't keep Quietus. It doesn't kill anything except Broadwing and the 3/2 and the 1/3, but their main cards are Shen and Jarvan. You might say, keep Necrotic Nestling or Necrotic Arachnoid. You need the blockers. Or you might say, Necrotic and Arachnoid is entirely useless and don't keep it. Thing is, I don't know because I have not done these matchups. So when I was seeing this for the first time, my thoughts were, okay, what are the power cards in Shen J4? There's Shen, there's J4, and there's Kinku Student. Right? There's also, in theory, the 1/2 that gets +2 whenever there's a barrier, or 1/3 I think actually is. No, it's a 1/2. It's a 1/2. That gets strength whenever a barrier is played. And Quietus kills this unit and this unit, so I thought it was a really important thing to keep. Winter's Touch is something I thought would be important to keep because I felt like there would be a turn in the mid game where I was doing nothing and wanted to ramp. I don't disagree that possibility could have occurred, but it doesn't in this game, and I never play the ramp card at all. But maybe I'm thinking of the Jinx Kennen game. I don't know. We'll have to see. Finally, Necrotic Arachnoid I do keep. In my head, I was thinking I'm going to need the 3 blockers to be able to block Shen and block a few other things. I think this is slightly misguided. I think that I really just needed to find more access to Harsh Winds and then try and go into Volibear specifically. I think Volibear's a very powerful card into their deck for trying to beat Jarvan, because Jarvan has 4 health, and trying to beat things like, I mean, even All-Seeing Oracle, right? If we get to play Volibear as just like a Rex that's been plundered, that's pretty much all you really want. So I think that I definitely misplay in this mulligan by kicking this. I think a better mulligan would have been to kick all 3 of these cards, but having not done this matchup, I thought that keeping these would be fine. If you want to go through like a little bit of mulligan theory, there's something I was going to put into a separate video just on its own. But the way you should, in my opinion, and this is really hard to do, but in my opinion, a way to abstract mulligan theory is to view your deck, your deck like this. Your deck is like a bell curve, right? It looks like this, right? And this is like good draws, and this is bad draws, right? Typically, you will have a draw that's somewhat in the center. Sometimes you will have insanely good draws, and sometimes you'll have insanely bad draws. Your mulligan is your opportunity to decide something about where you land in this paradigm. Now, what you need to realize is that in a given matchup, the given matchup will determine where this line needs to be for you to win or lose. If you're in a favored matchup, if the line is about here, that means that all of these draws will be good enough to win the game, right? If you have a draw that's even slightly worse than average because it's a favored matchup, you're going to win the game because you're on this side of the line. In an unfavored matchup, the line goes about here. You need these sorts of draws to win, and any of these sorts of draws, even if they're slightly above average, will not be enough to win the game. That's one way to abstract mulligan theory. What this ends up meaning in practice is that typically these sorts of draws in a given mulligan are necessitating certain tech cards or certain power cards that you need to be mulliganing for. So sometimes in some matchups, you're fulliganing just to have this in a bad matchup because you need to have this sort of hand to win. This should keep in mind that you're also reliant on what the enemy's hand is like. So this graph looks very different when you add in what the enemy's hand is. It adds a ton of different variables. But when it comes to this mulligan, something like Necrotic, Quietus, and Winter's Touch is a very middle of the pack mulligan. You've got one small answer to early cards, you've got one ramp card, and you've got one all right card to ramp into. This is a very middle of the ground mulligan. What I am claiming by keeping this, this, and this, and not removing this, is that any mulligan from this line on is a sufficient enough mulligan to win, generally speaking. I think this matchup is a little bit worse than I was imagining. And thus what I should have realized is that it's more like this, where any mulligan in this section's bad and any mulligan in this section is good. And to get a mulligan deserving of this sort of high RNG potential requires me probably to get rid of Necrotic and try and search more for things like Harsh Winds, which would be a much stronger option, or Volibear, or even like She Who Wonders. I think are more powerful cards in this matchup, as well as Feeding Icon, right? Feeding Icon's huge. I think that was way more important. And I think this mulligan theory can be translated into a lot of areas where mulligans look a little bit weird or confusing. That's at least one way I've abstracted mulligan theory, and I think this mulligan theory does help in the way I try and think about post-game whether the theory of the mulligan put me in a good enough position or not. That's a bit of a side tangent, but I thought I would mention it because I think it sort of highlights one of the issues with this mulligan is that without scrimming, I don't know where the line is. And thus without scrimming, I don't know if like I need to have a this good of a mulligan, this good of a mulligan, or this good of a mulligan. Like I don't know to what extent like below average and slightly above average mulligans are good enough for this matchup, right? And since a mulligan lets you choose, you know, if you start before you mulligan here, a mulligan lets you choose if you want to RNG to try and get further away or risk getting further back. And if your mulligan is here, typically that's why you try and pitch further. And anyway, that's vague mulligan theory, at least in my mind. Some mulligans don't look like this. Some mulligans will instead look like this. Oh my god, my mouse. Like this. And some mulligans will look like this, where this is Watchful Idol and this is every other card in your deck. But in general, that's one way to abstract mulligans. Anyway, let's actually talk about this game because I actually did not want to talk about mulligans for this long, but this is what the game is like. Keep these cards, they keep those cards, we start the match. We spend the first couple of turns passing. They don't seem to have much in their hand, so these passes seem fine. But 4-4 Badger Bear sucks. I don't want to see 4-4 Badger Bear. It turns out I do ramp. It's the next game where I don't end up ramping. So I'm glad I kept ramp. Ramp was very good. It's the next game definitely where I don't ramp at all. I end up doing ramp. They dealt 4 damage. We're up to the next turn. I play the unit, and they play All-Seeing Oracle. I assume at this point that All-Seeing Oracle has Ruination. There's only 2 cards that I think All-Seeing Oracle really wants to take. One is Ruin, and one is Veng. We will talk about this later because I think there's a situation where I should have played Ruin despite me thinking that this card has taken Ruin. I don't know if we actually see in the broadcast what they end up taking, but I think everyone assumes it was Ruin. I do play Vengeance at some point and they don't deny it despite having that possibility. So I'm pretty certain that it's Ruination. Their third site was Eradication, which they were never taking. I continue playing these ramp cards and we're sort of just getting through the mid game. Here is where the first sort of sequence of decisions I think matters. What I see in front of me right now are 3 units that are absolutely fantastic fodder for Volibear, right? Best thing to die, best thing to die. This unit won't die immediately, but what I do have is these things. Quietus hasn't hit anything yet. Quietus felt like it wasn't going to hit anything all game, right? Also, we draw Soul Hearters, which I think is more relevant for this conversation. Because I haven't played like a bunch of Broadwings and a bunch of 1/3s or whatever, my less than X strength removal is sort of bricked. They need to draw a card for me to be able to get some value out of them. And since I'm trying to get through the mid game right now, getting as much value from these cards right now as I can is quite valuable. So what I was thinking is that I play this Ice Veil Archer, Frostbite this, then play this. This lets me use 4 of my mana, keeping me at 3, which is a good way of spending my mana. And it means that when I do Volibear next turn, it strikes this, strikes this, strikes the Nexus, and I've reset the board. I haven't solved everything, like life isn't fantastic, but I've definitely stabilized through what could have been a very turbulent mid-game. And now they're reliant on having a relatively good hand in order to try and beat me. Now, they do have a relatively good hand, and that's very scary. But I think this Ice Veil Archer and this is a good place to be in. And when I'm looking at my hand, I actually don't think I'm in that bad of a position. I've got ways of dealing with multiple attacks, multiple big threat attacks. I've got Harsh Winds to prevent myself from dying. And I've got 2 late game cards that in theory, on general, like SI versus Demacia theory, if I just have enough late game cards that are big enough, because late game cards are big chonkers, I should be able to win.
It is a 5/8 that makes 2 2/2s.
So
I'm guessing the decision right now on Spidz' end is just considering would I like to play a freeze this turn, either through the form of a freeze unit or, you know, the Harsh Winds into a Volibear next turn, so then I can play Necrotic Nestling on 8, so like my mana's smoother a bit more, or if I just need the tempo from Nestling now. And it looks like we're electing to play the freeze units, also electing to take advantage of the freeze that needs unit speed to come into play.
Okay, card game and try not to say electing challenge, fail. This is one of many misplays. I think it's important to realize why this is a misplay, but this is one of many misplays. In my head, I'm thinking, what is the best thing that this 2/3 is ever doing? Is the best thing that this 2/3 is ever doing is blocking 4 damage? In my head, when I was starting this game, the answer was yes, and that's why I do this block. I think the answer is actually no. I think the answer is no. The most this is doing is not just blocking 4 damage. One key thing is that this is 1 out of 3 Jarvan procs. Leveled Jarvan is something I cannot kill without Vengeance. Vengeance is my only way of killing leveled Jarvan. Because I can't Frostbite and block leveled Jarvan because he has Barrier. And I don't have anti-barrier cards. The only way I can kill him is Vengeance, or, in theory, a freeze plus a Soul Harvest. But I'm going to be freezing Soul Harvesting this little fucker. So I don't think that's the best line for me. So I don't like doing this block. The Jarvan level is something I end up struggling with a lot during this game, and this block is one of the key reasons why. So I wish I didn't do this block. I wish I would have gone to 12 and taken this damage and then played Volibear and struck this, this, and this. Instead, it strikes the same things and I've only saved 4 health. Let's move on. This happens. I play Volibear. I don't try and greet it and pass. I think just playing Volibear is perfectly fine. Any card that they play or them passing back is pretty bad for me. So I'm fine playing Volibear and setting up my 10-10. Getting a barrier out of them it's okay. It's not great, but it's not awful. They play Shen. I decide not to attack because I don't want to put damage on my Volibear. I don't want to just put 3 damage on my Volibear. And I haven't scrimmed. I don't think Volibear gets plus 10 damage because I didn't deal damage, so it shouldn't level up the Volibear. But that, I just don't decide to attack. Comes next turn. They play Jarvan. Jarvan ends up pulling this unit. Now, I'm in an interesting position where, and this is something that I think is really important about the fact that I haven't scrimmed, I don't know what my win con is. Now, that should freak people out, that I don't know what my win con is. the most important thing in an LoR game is knowing what your win con is. If you don't know what your win con is, you're not really playing for anything. I think it is reasonable to assume that my win con is leveled Volibear, because things like She Who Wanders aren't going to be able to destroy the board enough, and leveled Jarvan will beat She Who Wanders just by setting up wide enough boards and going through. And I don't have She Who Wanders in hand. Necrotic Nestling is not really enough. Playing Necrotic Nestling as an 8-mana, what's it called? The Healing Prankster, the Maokai card. I don't remember the name of the card. Just like trying to go off Necrotic Nestling burn is like not going to be enough. That isn't going to win me the game. So having a leveled up Volibear is definitely how I need to win. And so I think playing Harsh Winds here is relatively justified. I don't hate playing Harsh Winds here. The other decision to make is, do I block with this unit? And again, the answer has to be no. I can't let Jarvan be at 2 of 3. Because what that means is that if they set up a second Jarvan, and I'm killing this Jarvan via this and this, like this Jarvan definitely wants to be frozen. If they get another Jarvan, and they do have another Jarvan, Jarvan will be leveled as soon as he pulls in, unless I do another freeze, right? I need to be preventing Jarvan level. So I do freeze on this and this, keep Volibear alive, prevent the Jarvan from leveling and doing this. This is, as it stands, sort of a good play for me. Cool, we set that up. This fading icon, I do think is a misplay. I think I play this fading icon because I'm like, I've got 2 mana. I don't need to think about it. And that's literally just going through my brain. I've got 2 mana. I don't need to spend it on anything else. I can play fading icon. She's a good card. In reality, I get into this position and I don't want to play this because I'm going to lose my 2/2 as value. And I did not need to play fading icon in this instance. I really wish I had just opened Necrotic Nestling and not had to worry about this. I end up deciding that to get value out of these units, I should attack in, right? That way, if this unit trades into this, or this unit trades into this, and then it's got less health so that a second Volibear could kill it, or something like a Volibear's champion spell could kill it. I thought putting damage on Shen is something that I would really prefer to do. But I really wish that I just not played Fading Icon and instead played Necrotic Nestling. Because, like, if I play Necrotic Nestling, they're going to play this unit and they're going to attack with Jarvan. And that's understandable, but that's sort of just what I have to acquiesce and deal with anyway. Playing this means that I have to sort of figure out what to do with these units. And I could have kept this as Harsh Winds later on, right? Because right now, instead of it being Harsh Winds, it's just like Flash Freeze. And Harsh Winds is better than Flash Freeze in this matchup. So I wish I had played this unit instead. End of the day, I decided to attack with the 3/1s. The biggest misplay out of all of these sets, and it seems very innocuous, but I really think this is a massive misplay, is that I attack with Volibear. In my head, I want to level Volibear, and Volibear needs to drag to get 10 more damage procs on Volibear. But in my head, I'm thinking about this a lot, and if you actually watch my version of the gameplay, I write down as a message to Renrag, because I'm not talking, I write down a message to Renrag, and then delete it just so there's text, of me saying I wish I didn't attack with Volibear, because 4 plus 6 from Jarvan kills Volibear. And I don't want to be in the position where I'm constantly protecting my Volibear from a Jarvan. I would have rather not had to force myself to be in those positions. So I wish I didn't attack with this. Now, I say that. On the other end, I need to level Volibear because I don't have a win con if I'm not leveling Volibear. So maybe attacking with a Volibear is fine. But this is something that I don't know because I've never scrimmed these games. And not knowing what you're supposed to be doing into a matchup is not a fun place to be in. Anyway, we attack with everything. I think a lot on this turn. They think about blocking, then they decide to. They play what's it called? King Jarvan III, and I get really sad because it means I'm going to lose. I can't ever imagine winning into second Jarvan if Jarvan flips. I play Necrotic Nestling. I don't hate playing Ruin this turn. That might seem weird, but I've got 2 Ruins in my deck, and so sort of getting through this card doesn't seem too bad, and this is not the worst time to Ruin. If I Ruin and they let it through, they're still going to attack me for a fair bit of damage with both of these. I do have Harsh Winds in retaliation, but, you know, it means Jarvan's also not leveling. Instead, Necrotic and Arachnoid is fine, but definitely doesn't feel amazingly strong, and it sort of prevents me from ever doing Ruination in the future, because I can't lose the board that I've set up into what they could end up doing afterwards. I play Nestling, they play the 1/2, they attack in, do the Shen stuff, do the Jarvan stuff, I block around. I have a tough decision here, whether to do harsh winds or no harsh winds. And this is another misplay. I end up playing harsh winds. I actually think there are two misplays here. I play harsh winds on Jarvan to try and protect Volibear, which, look, it's very emotional to try and protect Volibear. He feels like something that's really important to what my deck is doing. But right now, and until he's flipped, he is just a 10-6. Volibear doesn't do anything except being a 10-6 right now. I think it's better if Volibear dies so that I can draw into Volibear and get to do Riptide Rex again. I think that's how Volibear should be seen. He is a Riptide Rex that needs to not be on the board so you can play Riptide Rex again. Until he's flipped. Then he can be your win con, whatever. So I sort of think I should have let this through. So I don't think I should have played Harsh Winds. I think I should have played Shuhu Wonders as a 10-10 Frostbite. I think that 10-10 regen. Because it's sort of hard for them to do with 10-10 regen. Now the issue is that 3 Shen plus a 7-5... what's his name? Gotta remember his name. Jarvan. Does kill 10 health units, but I would have preferred protecting this guy than protecting Volibear. This guy is way better to protect because I can attack with him, and she who I guess attack with her. And I get to draw into possible future Volibears. So I wish I didn't do Harsh Winds for that reason. I also end up Harsh Windsing this unit because I want to keep this unit alive more than I want to keep this unit alive. That's wrong. I should Frostbite this unit because this unit has barrier, so if they want to do single combat here, it's safer for them. This is really minor, but the reason I Darius facepalm, and they comment about this, that I do end up doing Darius facepalm post Frostbite. I don't know if you see it on the... No, not if I skip by 10 seconds. It's just that I should have frostbitten this unit, but the second, like, Mark II Darius facepalm is that I think Volibear should have died and I should have played this unit. I think that is a much better line for me. You could think about this and go to the previous turn and be like, well, you said you didn't want to attack with Volibear because you don't want him to die. And I might convince myself that that's correct. But nonetheless, I think that I should be playing this unit this turn. I know it doesn't kill anything on their board. It does kill this, which is kind of cute. It doesn't kill anything on their board, but now they're going to get constant Cataclysms, and I need to have an answer for this. And right now, I don't have Vengeance in hand. Luckily for me, I draw Vengeance, and they do Cataclysm, and I Vengeance, and this is where I don't think they have the card. They're thinking about Shen Spell, and I know that they're thinking about Shen Spell. There's nothing they can really think about outside of Shen Spell. And so I know that they're thinking about Shen Spell, right? This means that when they develop units and go for their attack, I have to worry about Shen Spell. I think I misplay around Shen Spell, maybe. I'm currently beating Shen Spell because this only has a 16 strength and I'm healing to 18. So I'm alive at 2, but if they play form up, which they do have, it doesn't matter. Also, if they have single combat, this unit dies anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I think if I move around these units such that something else is an open space, maybe I've got a chance. No, I don't think that's true. I think I'm losing. I don't think this game's ever a win. I think this is the least interesting of the 3 sets, or the 3 games. Now, I want to go back through this game and sort of discuss back all the way here during the mulligan. What should have been going through my head? Because what I was thinking was, I want to keep Winter's Touch maybe for ramping. I want to keep Quietus so that I can kill one of their important units that are early, and I want to keep Necrotic and Arachnoid for trying to block down. I think this is misguided. I think I misevaluated what their threats were. Their threats were pretty much entirely just J4. Shen is sort of a threat, but if I keep Soul Harvest for Shen, they either have to spend a form up or Shen dies. And then later on, if Shen still becomes an issue, he can become Vengeance fodder or Frostbite fodder and continue freezing him. Shen isn't insignificant, but is definitely a big problem. But Jarvan, I don't have an answer for Jarvan. And maybe it's because I took a Vengeance out of my deck for Fading Icon. I did draw Fading Icon and I didn't draw Vengeance because that would have been the replacement. And so maybe if I was trying to beat Shen J4, I would have kept that Vengeance in. But I feel like I should have realized that what I really wanted to do was just play 10-10s with regen. And that I wanted to have second Volibears as Riptide Rex procs. And if we go through how this game ends up looking, I think a lot of my plays come down to me not knowing what I want to be doing in any given moment. This Fading Icon shows that I didn't know that I wanted to be playing this unit, or even playing Ruination. Not knowing what to do with this is a big part of what this game ends up coming to as well. This game is definitely the least interesting of the 3, at least in my memory. Actually, the next game's the least interesting of the 3, but I think my main takeaway from this game is absent of what my game is and absent of what Renrag's game was. I think it's just that, like, this is something I really should have pushed for scrimming more, because I think had I scrimmed this, I would have felt a lot better and more cognizant of what I wanted to play for. I think Renrag plays this is cleanly enough. He knows what he's doing. And that's fine. This wasn't, I don't think this is a favored matchup, but this is how this game ended up going. I had fun, but that's this game. All right, next is Shen J4 versus Jinx Kennen. There's some interesting decisions here. A lot of them in the early game. After midway through, it sort of gets very boring. I don't want Jural. I don't want Jarvan. Jural is interesting because he does have Tough, and they're a PNZ deck that runs a lot of deal 2 damage cards as well as 2 strength units, which is great for Tough. And so you could see a world where you're supposed to put the Dark and Aegis on the Broadwing, but I thought that I just want to mulligan into early units and then Shen. And this felt like something that would be like, it's like an okay turn 3 play, but I felt like Badger Bear is just as good as a turn 3 play pretty much. So I thought I would mulligan it away. We end up having a really good early curve, and I decide to attack here. You might ask why. This is way more of an important unit for you than this is an important unit for Renrag, right? This unit can become, as we saw in the last game, like a 22. If we end up drawing, Shen, now we've got Shen spell in hand, and this might guarantee lethal, right? Why throw away this unit? There are a few reasons for this. One is that their deck is full of 2 damage pings, which means that this unit as a win con is less reliable than it would be against other decks, right? But I think a much larger reason why I really like doing this trade is I want to ask, let's say they have something like 2 Flame Chompers. This unit, without any barrier in hand, is the ideal Flame Chompers pull because it keeps Flame Chompers around and prevents them from trading off. Me trading this unit into this can save me something like 4 damage from stuff like Flame Chompers. And protecting my health with a unit that I don't care too much about because it's going to die anyway, when my hand is already low to the ground, so I don't need to be specific with units blocking a lot of damage, is really quite valuable. I really like this attack. I felt like this attack was really, really smart, and I'm really proud that I did it. But I know for some people it would look a little weird, and maybe you disagree with it. But I thought that this unit attacking now would feel a lot better into Flame Chomper hands, especially because I don't have a way to protect it.
Badger Bear, stuff like Spirits Refuge.
Okay. They play these 2 cards. I decide to block Kennen. This is another decision I quite like. I think it's very obvious to block one of these. Keeping this as a 0/1 is good enough for trading into these 1 health units. And I have enough presence to deal with other stuff. One thing that's really important is that I don't need to maintain this for 3 health because I've got Jarvan to kill Jinx. I have anti-Jinx cards. I don't need to worry too much about keeping this as my only anti-Jinx card. Choice between killing Kennen and killing the 2/1. This may seem like an obvious choice, but keep in mind that like Kennen does a lot more than just exist as a 1-mana 2/1. His existence means that they cannot play another Kennen. They can't play Kennen. They can't go wide with extra Kennens. So you might say that I shouldn't kill Kennen here because now I've just let them play another 2/1 quick attack. Or I'm preventing them from playing Lightning Rush. That is the question. Is it worth it to prevent them from playing Lightning Rush? Or is it worth it to, prevent them from playing a second Kennen, right? I decide that them playing Lightning Rush would be a lot worse for me, so I'd rather trade into this unit now. It sounds like a really minor decision, but I think this is the sort of thing that can matter later on, and so I think it's important to trade into this. And I think there are some matchups we'd be wanting to trade into this and saying, I don't want you to have extra cannons. I'd rather you just have Lightning Rush in hand because I can interact with Lightning Rush better. Maybe you're like a Nopify heavy deck, or maybe you've got a bunch of single combats that allow you to interact with Lightning Rush a lot better, right? But I've got like very few single combats, and I don't want to be using them in that manner. All right, we develop units. They do Electro Harpoon to develop the Chompers. I develop this and eat the Chompers, which is really good for me. Like if you listen to the VOD, you can hear Card Gamer explain how good that is. They end up playing Squeaker, and I do something that I'm really, really happy with. I end up passing here. I've got 2 options of cards that I want to play. One is a River Shaper, but River Shaper is like the perfect fodder to let this get challenged by this and have a positive trade and let them sort of find better ways of having a big enough board to try and find awkward Jinx Kennen damage threats, which they can do, right? My thinking was that if they take this pass, I'm happy. right? I get to develop River Shaper in this next turn and sort of trade into the board and feel okay with it. If they do, if they develop like any unit, like any sort of 1-drop or 2-drop, then I'm just going to play River Shaper because they're not going to be able to pull this unless it's Zornite into Flame Jumpers. But I think not only have I seen 2 Flame Jumpers, they might have discarded Flame Jumpers instead of what they ended up discarding anyway, which I think was a Mystic Shot. So I'm okay if they develop a unit. But I was literally thinking, if they have Bouncer and Bolt, that's the only time that I want to play this over this. That way I can make this unit bigger and protect the Challenger unit. And so I decide to pass. And I'm really proud of this pass because it literally just reads Bouncer and Bolt. And Bouncer and Bolt is one of the better options for them on this turn, right? Lets them level Jinx quicker. It lets them interact with my board really favorably. Bouncer and Bolt is maybe their best choice. And I've got a really good play against it, which is to pass here. And that's what happens. They play Bouncer and Bolt and I play the barrier. And then they do this trade, which is a lot better for me, right? I protect Broadwing over this unit. You might disagree with this, but I felt like I really valued being able to trade into this unit favorably, especially because if you're hand reading, you know they can't proc augment. So it's just a great position to be in. I end up playing River Shaper. They end up playing Clockling. And then we have this attack. This attack I also thought was interesting. These are very minor things that are happening and going on, and maybe I think I really wish I had my in-game commentary for this game, but I thought a lot about what is the best thing to do with this attack, especially thinking about moral support. Uh-oh, I've lost the thickness of my lane. So let's talk about like what this attack means. First off, what is River Shaper? Like, what is River Shaper? What is he doing for me? At best, River Shaper kills a small unit, like a 2/2 or a 2/1, and draws me a card. That's the best thing River Shaper's ever going to do. The worst thing River Shaper could do is be shot down by a 2-mana damage spell, right? That's the worst thing that could happen. By attacking with River Shaper here, I am guaranteeing that he is getting his best value, despite the fact that generally against aggro decks, you want to be blocking. Now, in theory, you could say River Shaper's more than just dealing with a 2 damage unit because you can barrier them, and then they can draw even more cards. And while I don't disagree with that, I think we go back to like the curve where I'm in such a good position. I don't need to squeeze out extra value from River Shaper. Any hand or any sequence of events from here on out are super, super favored for me. And I'd rather keep moral support as a way to deal with things in future. The other thing I was thinking is that let's say they play Mystic Shot right now, right? I have an option. I can protect this unit's health, right? Like let's say they play Mystic Shot on this unit. I can actually make a decision. Do I want to moral support this guy or moral support this guy? And I think that's just like an interesting spot to be in because I felt as if there was value in keeping this at 3 strength to continue trading into their board quite favorably. I don't know. I really like attacking with this unit here. I really like keeping moral support and end up not playing it, mostly because when they're in this position, I don't want to play moral support and then let them play Mystic Shot. And their worst hands didn't seem that bad for me. Even Jinx hands, I'm easily trading well into with this unit. One thing I was considering was playing moral support to play around Jinx Rocket. If I moral support this unit will have 3 health instead of 1, which meant Jinx Rocket won't be able to kill this unit. They'll kill this unit, but not kill this unit. And I should be thinking about like them leveling Jinx, considering it's about turn 6 or 7 and they've got some cards in hand. I decide to just let this through. I draw Deny. I draw Shen, which is really nice. And I'm going to be honest, from about here on out, I don't think there's that many interesting decisions. I play Shen because there's no real reason not to. I don't need to greed out the fact that Barrier will be popped by the Rocket because I'm in such a good position with Deny that I'll be fine. They do this. Everything's fine. I pull the unit. I actually don't think we need to talk about anything else in this game. I end up drawing the heal spell and all this stuff. Nothing ends up happening. It's fine. I think this game is really, really interesting for its earlier turns. I think that the decision to attack with the 1/2 is something I'm really, really proud of, and I really think it's the right decision. I thought a lot about whether to block Kennen or block the Zornite Urchin, and I'm really glad with what I decided to. And I really like attacking with the 2/2. It sort of forces them to use Mystic Shot if they had it. I think it's really hard for them not to use Mystic Shot in that position. And so it makes me see that they don't have Mystic Shot, and I'm allowed to play around with moral support a little bit in a more interesting manner. I really liked that game. I felt like it was fun, and I felt like I was playing one of my best Legends of Runeterras, even though it was a very small scale, like difficulty setting or whatever, right? All right. Final game is the most interesting one, I think. Volibear SI versus Jinx Kennen. Now, this matchup's a little bit more obvious what your win con is. For playing a high power unit, such as Volibear, or especially Shuhu Wonders, will win you the game. Now, Shuhu Wonders does not kill level Jinx, but it kills literally everything else. It doesn't kill some of the Mech Yordles, but you'll be fine. And I think I do a lot of misplays in this game, but I think the misplays I do are really, really, really interesting. And I can't wait. I honestly can't wait to talk about them. This mulligan. Scholarly Pioneer sounds amazing. In my mind, I just want early units. This deck, if they just draw like 4 2-1s, and I don't draw Eradication or something, I am dead, right? I can't answer that unless I have like sufficient small unit stuff to kill them. So I get rid of all of this and just keep Scholarly Pioneer. Keeping Pioneer sounds a bit weird, but I think that like the fact that this is a 2-3 means I can trade into this, and I can even trade into Flame Jumpers really, really happily, and I still get to get either remove keywords to remove challenger keywords, or get healing, right? So I really like Pioneer. I kick everything else. I end up drawing what I think is a really good hand. 2 Scholarly Pioneer and a Valhyr's Prophet means that all of these units as 2-3s block favorably into every single thing that they're doing. Into Squeaker, into Kennen, into Forge Chief, into Zornite Urchin, into everything. I'm really happy about this. The only thing I can trade into is like some treasure. But it trades really well into everything that they've got. And this is the first misplay, I think. Or it's a consideration for a misplay. And this is, again, where the lack of scrimming comes into play. I play Quietus here. Now, my thinking for Quietus is that I don't want to Eradication on turn 3. And the reason I don't want Eradication on turn 3 is that I'm not allowed to pass on turn 3. I pretty much have to do it immediately because their open attack consistently, while they're also going to be able to draw cards later on, is pretty strong for them, right? But if I do Eradication, they can just play something like a Sump Dredger or like 2 more 2-1s, and I'm in sort of an awkward position. Maybe. We'll keep that in the back of my mind for a second. So my thinking is that I want to do Quietus now on the Forge Chief, prevent the mana, and then play this, challenge this, have this as a blocker, be able to stabilize against 2 units over the next couple of turns, and feel fine. And I get to continue doing that with more units over the next couple of turns. Quietus plus these 2 units is a very stable way of playing this game. It's a very safe way of doing it. You can be a little bit riskier. You don't have to play Quietus here. So we're going to see this later on. I don't know quite yet the value of Quietus. I have not played this matchup enough to know that value. Quietus ends up having way more value in this deck than I ever imagined, specifically because of augmented clockling, as well as being able to combine with freezes that are otherwise pretty bad. Right? You don't want to be freezing 2-1s, but if you can freeze something like an Eye of the Stormed unit or a Jinx, you'll feel a lot better off. So I don't know yet the value of this Quietus, and we're going to talk about this when the game ends, what this Quietus could have been. Alternatively, I did discount the Eradication thing just a second ago. If we build all possible Renrag hand states where they attack right now, right, deal 4 damage, I Eradicate, they've got like 5 cards in hand. Let's say all of these are units. I get to still play this. They might develop 3 of them on turn 3. I am down to 10 health, right? Because they open attack and deal 6 damage. I get to play this. I get to play this on the turn after. I get to heal a bunch. I get to trade into them. Or I get to play Eradication. And then I get to play Quietus on that future turn, right? In fact, I can even Eradication and Quietus on turn 3. So, in my head, this and this was the obvious play. Without having scrimmed, this is just what I thought would be the obvious play. Because I get to develop my board and deal with their early pressure in a very easy way. Because 2-3s are a very easy way of dealing with early pressure. But I think if I wanted to play this riskier, using this in one of the least awkward times possible to use it, followed by using that safe protection later on with, all 4 of these cards, would feel a lot calmer. I think that's the first big misplay, that I do Quietus on this Forge Chief, because it sort of sets me up for this line where I'm playing these cards, when if I just pass and Eradicate next turn, I think I'm in a much, much, much happier position. I really wish I'd done that. I'm going to quickly check their deck list. If they're not on Jury Rig, it sells it even more. Yeah, they're not on Jury Rig. I think Jury Rig sells this play even more, the fact that they're not on it. If they are on Jury Rig, you could make arguments that instead of dealing 6 damage next turn, they could be dealing upwards of 9. And they're not on Vision or anything. So I really wish I'd done that. I really wish I hadn't played Quietus. I play Quiet, I play this unit, try and eat the 0, 2. They play Squeaker. I eat the 0-2. They play Geode Mechaforcer. Now, let's look at our hand. Again, in my head, the obvious play was to play something like this and something like this. But no longer is the 2-3 stat line premium, for they have finally accessed the magical world of 3 or 4 health units via Geode Mechaforcer. So now I realize I got to play Eradication, man. I can't let them have these units. I either have to chump this or take 4 damage. I can't take 4 damage. There's too much damage. And I don't really have an effective way of dealing with Geode Mechaforcer unless I block it and then challenge it again. And by doing that, I'm accepting 6 damage, which I didn't think I was comfortable enough doing at the time, considering my deck doesn't have as much healing as you would expect. There's not really much healing in my deck, outside of like Necrotic Nestling. So I play Eradication. Eye of the Storm blows me the hell out. I was thinking that worst scenario, they do 4 damage via developing a bunch of units. They deal 4 damage, but also don't have to develop units, and they draw cards. Like, they get to keep Zonite Urchin for future turns. What I wish I had done in this turn, I think, is to play Valhyr's Prophet, chump this guy or chump this guy, and then block that, challenge it next turn. This would still be a 2-1, which makes it survivable, and just accept that Eradication will have to come down later. I think that's a better line than what I ended up doing, but I thought Eradication, I felt like I had to do it because I couldn't accept them having a 3 health and a 4 health unit, or a 4 health unit. I think that's one of the big misplays, again. I think this is sort of a consequence of the misplay that I did where I don't play Eradication on this turn, wherein they having access to Geode Mechaforcer is sort of less scary to me when I'm able to just block the unit that it's buffing and able to play things like play Quietus on whatever unit they're buffing or whatever, right? Anyway. Turns move on. I get some good challenge. I know they don't have any augment cards, so I do this and I feel really happy about it. The game just progresses on slowly. There's not too much to be thinking about. I don't think these turns are particularly difficult. I want to talk less so about these turns and more about what the hand sculpting looks like. By the way, I should mention, if you watch the VOD, they play Beard and then they play this and they pick the one unit that has the chime on it, despite the fact that Predict would normally shuffle the chimes. Anyway, my hand looks fucking weird. I don't have a win con. I don't have Volley. I don't have She Who Wonders. I don't have Necrotic or Nestling. Any of those cards, I think, make this hand feel a lot better. What I do have is the healing. I said this deck doesn't have much healing. This is my only healing card, basically. I've got 5 copies of Ramp, and I've got 1 piece of interaction. Only 1 piece of interaction. This puts me in a weird position where this is my only way to kill Jinx right now, and I need to combine it with a freeze. So I don't know really what I want to be doing with my turn. One thing I don't do in this game is threaten cards. Now, someone in the comments, I think AJ the Pro, someone in the Twitch stream, said that at some point I was threatening Volibear. That did not occur in my mind at all, but I wish it had, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one thing I could have done is try and set up 4 threatens. If I was thinking about this more cognizantly, I could have realized that playing 2 of these units threatens a Volibear on next turn, and playing 3 of them threatens She Who Wonders. And I think I should have considered that at least. I think threatening Volibear by doing this, plus this, plus this, or even more so, just doing even these units to block down and then soul harvesting this, means that I'm constantly threatening Volibear, which means they can't play Jinx. Because if I threaten Volibear, they need to be able to flip Jinx on the stack in that action. And even then, Jinx is 4 health, so never mind, I lied. They can't play Jinx. They can't enjoy playing Jinx. I think I should have thought of that. I think I should have thought of playing Valhyr, or even Valhyr plus Ramp, and then this to kill the elusive unit, and threaten Volibear, which is something I never end up doing. Anyway, they attack, I block, I try and draw cards, they Mystic. I get into a weird position. So seeing them Mystic, my brain is racing. I'm like, holy shit, they've got Jinx and like 7 burn, and I need to heal right now. So I decide that I need to prioritize healing. From memory, I play Valhyr's Prophet, but we get to this turn, and what I decide to do is like, I can't let them have an action without me healing, because these are focus speed. So if they play right, they're gonna play Mystic Blowback, and kill me right now on the stack, and I don't have Aegis for it because I don't run healing. So I think that I need to do this. I don't think it's bad to do this. I end up doing this and passing to heal out. But I haven't realized that my hand has changed. And what do I mean by this? Drawing these 2 cards changes everything about my hand. I saw these 2 cards initially because I played Valkyr's Prophet last time. I played the draw card last time, right? And I draw these and I'm like, finally, this is my answer for Jinx. I have answered Jinx. This is how I'm going to kill Jinx, and there is no other way I'll ever need to kill Jinx. And so I refuse to see this card as a way to kill Clockling. This card has already told me exactly what it's doing. It's killing Jinx. I don't realize by this position that Vengeance changes that. In my head, Vengeance is meaningless. Or it's not like Vengeance is meaningless. I actually just haven't thought about Vengeance at all. This is still my Jinx answer. In reality, I wish I had done the heal and then killed Clockling, because I don't run any other ways of killing Clockling and I can't block Clockling. And Clockling does add on to burn and threatens me a lot more with me having to be forced to tap out in order to play cards like this and this to find a win con early enough, right? Because the more damage they do, the more I am threatened to try and find my win cons sooner, right? If I do this on this, I am threatened less quickly, and thus I'm given more time to find my win cons and play more safely and more controlly, which will inevitably make me more likely to win, right? I wish I had Soul Harvest this unit at this action. It still lets me threaten Volibear, which means they can't do Jinx, but it means I'm also able to pass really safely. So this is just a small level misplay, right? They end up doing Electro Harpoon. I don't realize that they're setting up Jinx here. I mean, I don't realize that they're setting up a Jinx Rocket. What I do realize is that they're setting up a Jinx level to try and deal burn damage. I heal again. I really, like, the fact that I don't Soul Harvest here hurts me so much, because I think if I Soul Harvest here, I'm in such a better fucking position. But, like, I haven't realized what Vengeance is yet. It hasn't occurred in my brain that I need to Vengeance Jinx. In my head, this is how I'm killing Jinx. Anyway, they open and I Vengeance this unit because I'm scared of burn. And I think in this position, I Vengeancing this unit is correct. But man, oh man, I wish I had Soul Harvested. I Vengeance it. They set up their Jinx stuff. I want to mention that, like, this sequence of, like, a bunch of Clocklings is really what I didn't realize about Renrag's deck going into it. I didn't realize just how much staying power they would have, and this is why I needed to scrim. Because in my experience, this deck doesn't actually have that much staying power outside of Jinx. But instead it's using these Clocklings to have staying power. They play Jinx here. This is a little bit of a minor thing. I've got a decision. Kill Jinx this turn with these 2 cards, but lose this to a Rocket if they have exactly Rummage, or wait till next turn. Now, if I wait till next turn, a Rocket is guaranteed. If I do it this turn, a Rocket is not guaranteed. Since a Rocket is guaranteed, I'm going to be losing this unit and this unit anyway to the Rocket, so there's no reason really not to do it this turn, in my opinion. So I do this unit plus this just now. I saw someone in the Twitch chat saying that I should be waiting for the Rocket to already occur, but I think it is extremely likely in my mind that they cannot flip Jinx and they're just playing it because they saw me tap under Vengeance, or that they've got a second Jinx, and doing this now is going to be important for killing the first Jinx before the second Jinx. Anyway, I really like doing this play. They end up having a Rummage and dealing with my board, and they end up drawing into another Jinx, and that sort of seals the game. At this point, we're at this point where, like, I need to draw my win cons, and I'm not drawing them, and I try and draw them, and it's not enough. I think in this position, I could have been a little bit greedier with my passing, actually. This is another position where I could have threatened Volibear, and I didn't. Instead, I developed a unit which tells them I don't have Volibear, which lets them win the game on the spot. Right. At this point, they've won. I attack here because in my head, if I get another Harsh Winds out, I want to be able to freeze all their units and whatever. I draw Volibear, I lose. So let's go back to the start. Let's watch this game again, now that we've seen the entire sequence of events, and think what ended up happening. First off, should I have kept Volibear? I think the answer is still no. I think I still needed to get rid of Volibear. But I think you know, you could do result-based analysis and say, oh, if you just had a top end, you would have won. But I don't think I'm allowed to keep Volibear, because every bit of top end helps me. Everything from Shihu to Arachnoid into Volley helps me win the game. And so I've got like 8 of those. I'm going to hopefully draw into one of them over the next, 13 draws. Eradication, right? Imagine if I had kept Quietus for that Clockling and didn't need a Vengeance it. Now, I could have Soul Harvested it, but keeping Freeze plus Soul Harvest was important for second Jinx as well, right? Quietus, Freeze plus Soul Harvest, and Soul Harvest are my ways of killing their important units. And their important units in this instance are Jinx and Clockling. And the fact that I needed to use Vengeance on Clockling really set me far, 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 far back. If I do Eradication, right, on the turn, instead of playing the 2-3, I'm at like way less health. Even if they had like early units and were able to pressure me even more to less health. Imagine my position on a turn right around here, where now I've got like 2 or 3 units on the field, including possibly a Challenger, right? I might be at slightly less health, but I don't even really think that's true, because part of the reason I'm low is the fact that I did take damage from the 4 damage of the squeaker thing. I don't know. I think if you look through this game and just imagine what my hand looks like in a position like this, where I have Quietus instead, changes everything. Now, I could have played Soul Harvest as well, but I don't know. I think the fact that you're seeing a Clockling pretty much constantly on their board at all times is quite insane. And if I just not killed Forge Chief and killed Clockling with the Quietus, or even with the Eradication, if I'd kept Eradication, this game would have looked a lot differently. And this is sort of the issue that occurred when I didn't end up scrimming, because I didn't know what to do against Clockling. Like, Clockling just didn't appear in my brain as what was the scary part of this deck. That's all. I think this game is really interesting. I really enjoy playing these SI control decks. I've sort of fallen in love with it over the past year, but I definitely need to scrim matchups more, especially for a thing like Aegis. And us not scrimming was definitely a negative. I put a lot of my focus into CDS this week, because I've been annoyed that the last 2 weeks I've said I hadn't put much time into CDS. That's all. I hope this was enjoyable. I felt as if in my head this was going to be a lot more deep and detailed than it ended up being. But I think there were a lot of play-by-play decisions that had huge ramifications over the course of the entire game, right? Volley versus Shen J4 had short, intricate decisions that ended up mattering across the entire state of the game, including like blocking the Badger Bear, which meant Jarvan leveled up quicker, right? Imagine if Jarvan wasn't leveled when he was leveled. Like, I would have been so much happier off. In the second game, right, I ended up winning that game, but it was because I made a lot of these tight decisions that played me quite well, including attacking with the 1-2. Now, because that game was such a blowout, I don't think that decision ended up mattering, but if the game was tight, a decision like that would have been extremely relevant. And in a game like this, where it was extremely tight, right, I do draw Volibear. If I just answered those 2 Jinxes in more efficient ways, I have taken control of the game and won. So I could have won this game, and the fact that I didn't is sad. And these little micro decisions about the early turns, what is the value of Quietus, and not getting rid of it just for a Forge Chief to save the 2 damage because I want to be able to play Eradication. Or being able to decide, what are my 2-3s doing for stabilization? Are they only stabilizing on turns 3 through 5? Or could they be stabilizing on turns 5 through 8? Which they're not doing in this game, because I used them up on turns 3 through 5. And instead used my Quietus on turns 3 through 5 when they could have been defending 8, and just used Eradication and taken early damage, right? I guess that's one way of, like, you know, idealizing this, right? If I've got, like, you know, 3 or 4 different pieces of interaction, right? Let's say one's Eradi, one's Quiet, this one's and you've got the 2-3s, and then you've got, like, the Ice Veil plus Soul Harvest, right? What I end up doing is using both of these to deal with turns 1 through 3. I use these to pretend to deal with turns 4 through 7 unsuccessfully, and I use these to very unsuccessfully deal with turns like 7 through 10, right? When instead, I could have... And I guess I should say that, like, around here is where damage comes from. And I think instead, what we could have done... In fact, can I change color? Ooh. Instead, what if we did Eradi and damage on turns 1 through 3, and then used these on these turns, but took no damage and won the game? Boom, game solved. I think that's like, this is a very reductive way of viewing this game. It doesn't tell the game in its entirety, but it is an analogy, and I think this analogy does have value. And I think this could have been a better way of viewing this game, right? So that's everything. Keep in mind, I guess I should say to some extent that, like, if I Eradicate on turn 3, they can still do the +2 damage spell that buff something and still push in a fair bit of damage. But I think the way my hand would have been sculpted would have felt a lot better at the time, especially because I wasn't eradicating my own 2-3, if I do it that way. And that's all I want to talk about. Renrag played very, very, very well. I ended up telling Renrag this in direct messages. And I had a good time. This was one of my favorite sets I've played in competitive LoR for like the last couple of weeks. So I really, really enjoyed this set. It sort of felt like the RoboMaster set where it was really tight games where I played plays that I didn't normally play with the decks that I normally play and felt like I just had a good time. Thank you for checking this out. Hopefully stuff regarding the face and the location is all fine. And I shall see you next week for when we play against Maokai Saplings. Bye.